Hey, everybody. Welcome. Y'all come on in. It's a different time for us today. But we have a special guest. It's been a while since I've been on here. And so we have a lot going on, a lot of new things happening at the Institute that I'm very, very, very excited about. So we'll get to some of that. But today we're talking allyship with Aisha, and so just gonna make sure she's not here yet. Hey y'all, come on in, tell me how you're doing. I know we're at a different time for our live, but we had to accommodate this time for our guest who's coming on to talk with us. She's actually from the UK, so that's why we had to kind of switch up our time. Super excited to have y'all here with us. We are discussing allyship today with Aisha, who's in the UK. So I'm going to read her bio, and hopefully I did not miss her. I think she's coming in now. And so Aisha Suleiman is an award-winning diversity and inclusion leader, entrepreneur, and keynote speaker. Through her company, The Inclusive Culture, Aisha helps organizations achieve their diversity, inclusion, and business goals through effective employee networks as part of their journey towards a more inclusive workplace. Aisha has worked with renowned global brands like Amazon and IPG media brands, using her experience, passion, and drive for progress to help these companies meet their diversity, equity, and inclusion commitments. Well, let's hope that Amazon steps up. Feel me? In 2022, Aisha launched True White Allies, a film project that shares the stories of white anti-racists from as early as the 1700s to inspire increased allyship and action. And so we're going to invite Aisha now to join us as we have our discussion. I'm super excited to discuss this with her. Let's see if I do. Tell us how you're doing in the chat, by the way. There's a few of us, so definitely tell us how you're doing in the chat as you join. See, y'all, I knew I was going to do it. Hey, I never have this back far enough when we start.
Hey.
I don't know why I do this to myself. How are you? It's so good to see you. Let's see.
Good to see you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great. Love to have you. I'm super excited to introduce you to our community as we have this super important discussion today. So first and foremost, welcome. Introduce yourself to our community, our network. We have a few folks joining us. So who are you? Who's your community? And how does your community love you? That's how we always start our combos.
You know, I love those questions. I already heard you give people the long spiel, so I'll give the more down to earth. Who am I? So my name is Aisha, and I would describe myself as a foodie based in London. I love to eat. I literally have a whole spreadsheet. Whenever I go somewhere new, I'm like, oh, was the food good? It goes onto my spreadsheet. If it wasn't good, it doesn't go onto my spreadsheet.
I love a good spread.
Yeah. I'm a founder, so my company, Inclusive Culture, helps companies start effective employee networks, so things like ERGs, employee resource groups. So that's my jam. And then these days, I'm a film director. So that is, I guess, my goal to use film to tell stories that impact the world and get people to think about how they can be more inclusive and more equitable and fair to other people. So that's my newest jam. And then your question when you said, who's your community and how does the community love you? I was like, how do people love me? But I would say my community is Black women and people who love us, right? And that's not always everyone in the Black community. So that's why I thought I need to be specific on that. So Black women and the people who love us and care about us. And that can be anyone from any walk of life. So I would say that's my community.
We love that community. We love that community. Hey, y'all in the chat, let us know how you doing, where you're checking in from. And thank you so much for that. We love to hear how communities love us, because it's a way of offering a foundation for other folks who want to know more about that. It's so good to have y'all. Hello. You know, we're not used to being on live at this time. So interested in the people that see the people that pop in. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Might be onto something at this time here. And so tell us more about the work you do. You mentioned that you are now leading this film series. So what led you to this work? Give us more info about it and why it's important. So let us know.
Yeah, so by the way, I work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I work for a media company. So I look after Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And then I've got my company. But then this all kicked off 2020. So I was still working at Amazon then. And this was when, George Floyd was murdered and, the wave of protest, started. And by the way, there have been several protests before that. That was the one that just really blew up. And I had a lot of emails from like white colleagues sort of saying, oh, what can I do as an ally? And they were, of course, coming to me because at the time I was leading the Black Employee Network, which I started years before. And on one hand, I was like, okay, this is great that people are, waking up and all of that. But then on the other hand, I was a bit annoyed because I'm like, well, this isn't the first time these conversations have been happening.
Yeah.
But also, why are you coming to me? But then I thought about it and I was like, when you think about, who's been at the forefront fighting for racial justice, you always think of like a Black or brown person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe we need to start pushing more focus on some of the white people who were abolitionists because, we need to give white people their own role models.
Mm.
So then I started thinking and I was like, well, I actually don't know of any white people who are abolitionists. Like none of them came to mind. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go do some research. So I started doing some research and initially, I'll be honest, I thought, oh, it's going to be really hard to find any, but there were actually loads. Loads of people in the US, but also in the UK, which, that I was surprised by. And I started reading about these people and some of them were just really amazing. And they basically embodied what it means to actually be an ally. And I thought to myself, we need to tell their stories because we need to sort of shift this narrative that, solving the problem of racism is a Black and brown problem. Like it's everybody's problem, right? Mm-hmm. And right now we're in 2022, but there were people from the 1800s, which by the way, back then, sort of being anti-racist, you could probably get killed. It wasn't like a joke. And they were still fighting for that. So like right now, what's your excuse? Yeah. So that's how that all came about. Initially, I was going to do it as a book, but then I was like, you know what? I want to be a film director. I'm going to try this out.
We love. But I want to know more about that because, on our platform, even for some of the work that we put out, we talk about co-conspiratorship, right? Moving past allies, especially because that language is like so co-opted and all those things. So as you talk about this, I definitely want to hear more about how are you defining allyship in the work you're doing?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, I chose ally because true white allies just sounds better than true white co-conspirators. I was like, okay, people are going to struggle with that. Plus, some people don't even know what co-conspirator means, right? So I think ally, as you said, is one of those words that's sort of been hijacked, right? Kind of like woke or like feminist. And because it's been associated with a lot of negative things, people are kind of like, you know what, I don't really like that word, right? So I think also we have people calling themselves allies, but they don't actually ever really do anything. Like they're very good at, reading the books, talking the talk. Maybe they go to a protest here or there, but when you actually examine it, they don't actually do anything, right? So that's part of the reason why I named the project True White Allies, because it was kind of like, this is what it means to be truly an ally, because these people were not just talking. So to me, an ally is not just someone who just talks. They also act. So they're willing to risk their position to help people from historically excluded groups make progress, right? So I did a post on LinkedIn the other day and I was talking about this and I said, shout out to white women who don't throw Black women and women of color under the bus in the workplace. So they do things like they speak up for you during the meeting. They don't wait till after the meeting to be like, oh, you know what? I really agreed with what you said there, or like they actually back you up, right? If you're being harassed or if you're being bullied and they see it, they will actually back you up. So if you decide to go to HR, they'll be like, yeah, you know what? I saw this and this and this and that. They're not just gonna be like, oh, well, I didn't really say anything, or they won't come to you and be like, oh, I don't really want to rock the boat. So that's what being an ally is all about. And the people in the films, they risked their lives. They were willing to. So like one of the women, Abby Kelly Foster, she was American. So her house was actually a stop on the Underground Railroad,
Mhm.
right? And I was watching an interview with this author. She's called Bettina Love. And yeah, oh, she's great. So I was watching the video where she was talking about the difference, and she told a story about how Bree Newsom, wanted to take down the flag,
Yeah.
and there was a white man there with her, and the police showed up and they wanted to tase the pole so that she would come down, and he went and he put his hand on the pole
Mhm.
because he knew that they wouldn't do anything because he was there. So that is what it means to me to be an ally or like co-conspirator.
Mhm. Yeah,
But I
right.
just feel like ally has been hijacked and, a lot of people call themselves it, but that's not actually what it means.
But I love that, right? Because essentially you're right. People do call themselves allies. And it's like, since when do we actually call ourselves things as when the community most impacted didn't call you that, right? Like, how do you call yourself an ally if the community in which you are an ally to never actually called you that? Which I think is also just really important to the conversation, right? Because when we think about what's really important in these moments is not only how you're supporting other communities, but also how you're following their direction, right? You're not leading the efforts, you're in solidarity with, right? Even to your point, your example about being in situations where you must speak up in the, how many times that has happened to me where folks will meet me after outside of a thing and just be like, oh, I really appreciated you speaking up. I'm like, well, you could have done that, right? Especially after
Thanks for
you saw these
nothing.
folks ganging up on me. You gonna wait until after? What does that mean to me, right?
Yeah. And I was like, it's almost like you want me to give you a medal for doing nothing? Like,
Or give you a
what?
medal for doing what you're supposed to? Like, you're supposed to do that. Like, let's be clear.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. And it's also like when you examine it as well, people who are truly allies, they're not busy like walking around wanting people to call them allies. To them, they just see it as being a decent human being. So like they'll just be like, okay, that's fine, but I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. So they don't actually see it as like going above and beyond. To them, it's like, well, this is how it should be. And it's a shame
Exactly.
that the bar is so low that you have to call me an ally. They just see it as I'm just being a decent human being.
If I had a shoe, I would throw it at you. I mean, I do. I think it's a shoe back here, but like, I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's what you're supposed to do, right?
Mhm.
This is how you're supposed to show up. We don't get awards for doing the work that we do. I mean, we don't even get paid half the time the way that we're supposed to, right? As Black women, we don't get access to those sort of things, these national platforms about doing this work, right? And yet, for some white folks, we do one thing, and then now we have to put you on spotlight, awards. It's weird. And so I really appreciate you even just like bringing that in too. Like we have to consider that this is just what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that your work is providing that map for you to do what you're supposed to do, right? There is a legacy of this, and like how do you stand in solidarity with movements similar to what folks have done in the past, which I think is also interesting because when I first, was introduced to your work, I was like, I don't even know some. I mean, I've heard of some of the big ones, but when I think white abolitionists, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Beyond the folks that I remember, let me actually take a look. So as I think about this, how do you see your work being a resource to educators in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I focus on 8 white people, right? So 4 men, 4 women, and each of them has a lesson to sort of teach.
Oh,
So if I to think off the top of my head, Elizabeth Hayrick. So she was an English woman, and what she did was she called for sugar to be boycotted. So to try and stop, slavery in the Caribbean at the time. She was like, well, okay, people keep buying sugar and it's made of slave labor. So let's like, try and get people to stop buying sugar, for example. And she was against this whole concept of gradual abolition. So that's what they called it. So they said, okay, fine, we'll set all the enslaved people free, but they have to do this sort of apprenticeship for a couple of years. And after they do it, then it was basically like we're teaching them how to be free. As if anyone needs to be taught how to be free. But basically
maybe they do though.
right.
Right. Those who benefit from systemic oppression and all of that, those who hold special privileges, maybe you do have some lessons to learn on how to be free, right? I digress. I'll leave that be.
But she was basically like, well, no, none of this. We're going to wait X amount of years. She was like, now, we need to get rid of it right now. So she really pushed for that. So we can learn from that, this whole thing of, progress is going to take time. And I do agree that sometimes, yes, progress does take time. But sometimes it's because you are standing in the way. So before you say progress is going to take time, make sure that you are not a blocker and that you have done everything that you possibly can to make stuff happen quicker. Simply just saying, it's going to take time is not enough. That's not taking action, right? And because of her efforts and other people as well who are against this whole concept of gradual abolition, again, very interesting. So there were people who were against gradual abolition and they were like, no, right now. And then there were people who were for it. So what does that remind you of today, right? It's like today, like Martin Luther King talked about, the white moderate. So even today we have people who are kind of like, ooh, but it's going to take time. Let's not rock the boat. Ooh, maybe you shouldn't say it like that. Let's make people feel comfortable. What I always say is, hold on a minute. Anytime something new you have to learn. So like, let's say you decide, hey, I want to start a new workout. Or maybe I want to start, I don't know, learning how to drive. Let's say you don't know how to drive. You know it's going to be uncomfortable. You know you're going to experience some sense of discomfort. This is just, we accept as human beings, whenever we're learning something new or trying something new, it's going to be uncomfortable. But then when it comes to talking about anti-racism, all of a sudden people are like, oh, no, we need to make people feel comfortable. But why? But why?
Right? And I always ask that question too, because why is it that your comfort has to come at the expense of my life, my safety, my protection? So your comfort is more important than me living out in the world, not thriving in my fullness because I have to be in fear of what could happen to me.
So instead of telling people that, people need to make other people feel comfortable when talking about racism, shouldn't the conversation be, why don't you work on your resilience when it comes to talking about this difficult topic? And, build on that rather than putting the burden on people who are oppressed to make you feel comfortable. Like, no.
I'm trying not to get hype over here. I'm trying to contain myself. But you speaking up. Okay, that preacher in me is like, say that.
But like literally all of them, they all understood that. So they were not going around, trying to make white people feel comfortable. They were like, nope, you need to not do this. This is not okay. Benjamin Lay, one of the people in the films, he wrote a book. And in the book, he said, if you're a slave owner, you're a murderer. And you're going to go to hell.
We love.
So imagine someone saying that like it's 1700s, 1800s. Everyone around you is an enslaver. But you're out here saying, oh, if you do this, you're a murderer, right? So what's the equivalent of that today? Like, we need to get comfortable with having these conversations. So basically, a true ally is comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then they recognize that if they feel uncomfortable, that's some inner work that they need to do and unpack why they feel that way, rather than putting it on you and saying, oh, well, you made me feel bad. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe the truth made you feel bad, but I'm just the messenger.
And it's also like, if that truth unsettles you, hold on to that. Like, right? Like, let it unsettle you. Let it course throughout your body, and then really get to the root of why it unsettles you. Right? Like, because that's essentially, like you said, that's where the real work begins. That if you want to show up to actually be what we're calling an ally, then it requires you to hold on to that unsettling feeling, right? And kind of do what needs to be done, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've been seeing your post about Emotional literacy.
We do a little bit. We do a lot about social emotional learning. Yeah.
So important because I feel like no shade, but a lot of people like we were not taught this as kids, as you said in the post, right? Now the problem with that is this is why when you try and talk to, for example, black men about things like sexism and misogyny, it just doesn't quite translate. You start getting the same reactions that you get when you're talking to some white people about racism. The defensiveness, that, oh, why are you attacking me? That reverting back almost into like that childlike mode, right? So that all that pops up. I think it's all part of that lack of emotional literacy, lack of self-awareness, lack of, okay, let me sit and like unpack my feelings. And that's across the board. I feel like different communities have that issue. It's just that when we talk about racism, this is how it manifests with some white people. But if you apply it to other things, you know, when we talk
Other
about things
constructs,
like,
absolutely.
yeah, you get the same response. It's that lack of that emotional literacy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is Women's History Month, so we go at that intersection. Don't get me started about unpacking the patriarchy in the Black community. I digress. I'm gonna hold on to that. That's another conversation because I will take us there. Okay.
I'll come back to that. I'll come
Listen,
back.
okay, we'll come back to that because I want to get our cousins together about the fact that if we call you in because you're allowing the privilege of your maleness to really be violent, right, to my existence and that of my peers, right, even folks in the LGBTQ plus community, we got issues. I'll never forget. I told a friend, I said, you know, you really being homophobic and misogynist and all of this. And it was like, for him, it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I'm like, no. I want to call you into this. So this work, as you mentioned, of allyship doesn't just translate to race. You're right. It translates to all these other areas where oppression really does intersect. We have some really good stuff going on in chat. So I kind of want to bring that in. Bald-headed Queen, hey sis, says an FB memory popped up today, and I said that same thing. So hashtag a heart check. How are we checking in with our emotions? Tracy says it's a natural flight or fight response when difficult issues are raised. Yeah. Right. And so it's that point of how do you navigate, right? That social emotional foundation that we really, some of us did not get as children. How do we navigate that flight, right? That fight response that we feel, right? And where does it go? When folks call me in, because I'm not perfect, I'm work in progress, y'all. And when folks do that, the response for me is always just to listen first. I don't need to really defend myself because I no longer buy into like this idea of what perfection is supposed to be. I don't buy into what a standard is supposed to be. I start with, you know what, I want to hear you because that means that there's some work I need to do in order to be a better person. To show up for my community better. And if I'm going to show up for my community better, that requires me to shut up sometimes and literally just listen to the hard truths. And I take that and I do the work I need to do in me. I do my reading, I listen to podcasts, I journal, I do all the things to make sure I'm a better human. Because there's nothing to defend. I know I'm a good person. I don't need to defend that. I know who I am, but I also know I make mistakes. That I want to work. That's more important to me than me being on some pedestal for being this amazing person. Because I need to defend. Like defend what? So I mean, thank you for that. But yes.
No, I love it. I love that bit about letting go of that perfectionism thing, right? And I think it's a beautiful thing because when you let go of that and you learn to give yourself grace, then it makes it easier for you to give other people grace as well. Because what you find is people who are super critical of others, like super, super harsh. I reached the point where I actually feel pity for them because all I just keep saying to myself is the way you talk about everybody else, that's probably how you talk about yourself. Yeah.
Where you trying to take me? Right? Where you trying to take me today is how you think about yourself. It's that right there. It's that right there. Like when I talk to even some of our clients, right? We got a few coaching clients. It's like that reminder that self-talk is so important, right? And it's like release yourself. You already know how that happened. We good? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Now I put my phone on do not disturb. I have no idea how that call came through. But still, even as we think about, right, the idea of we owe people their expectations of us, like we owe them something in order to feel worthy. But you're right, giving yourself that grace. I always have to remind our folks, like, you owe the world nothing, right, but the most loved and grounded version of you. If you don't feel loved for yourself, you are not grounded in your life. How do you show up for these communities? How do you show up for other people, right? You can't. And so, look, let me stop, because this is cool. I'm supposed to be talking to you, but you see, I haven't been on live in a while, y'all know. So I'm out here just talking. I'm out here just saying stuff. I don't need to be saying stuff.
No, it's good. I'm loving it.
And so in all of that you do in your work, I'm actually also just really interested for our community, right? And you talk about your journey to this, having other folks who were kind of just like, I also want to bring this in. You were talking about other folks and how when all these things were going on, you were the person to go to. And someone even put in the chat, like, those of us who are in marginalized groups, right, or in groups where we've been otherized and pushed to the parameters. A lot of times folks come to us to like process what's going on in the world or the ways in which they've harmed somebody else who's in your community, and they think that that learning has to come from you. And so here it is, you provided a process by which they can learn from folks within their community who have done the work. That's also really interesting. I want to say they've done the work. Let's say that. And so in all of that, right, what is then for those of us who want to be more mindful about how not to, or at least, or even how to be, I want to say more conscious of how we do that. For example, something happens, I say something offensive to someone, and I always say, your immediate response should not go to someone else within that group, right, to apologize for the mistake that you made and to learn from them. Like, what is that step for someone who's like, well, I did some sort of harm to someone, and I want to be an ally, and I want to show up, but I don't know what to do. Right? In your experience, especially as you work with organizations, what's that step, right? What do you think? What should people do? You mentioned that earlier, and I was like, oh, that's a good question to ask.
You know what? The point you made about don't go ask someone from that group, or apologize, or, another thing I see people do is, oh, this person said I'm racist. Let me go ask this Black person if what I actually said was racist.
Right.
There's a problem with that. Black people are different. Mm-hmm. So I had a situation where, a friend, ex-friend now, had said the N-word in reference to talking about a song, whatever. For me, like, I don't know, I have a zero tolerance policy, right? Because I feel like even within the Black community, we haven't all, come together and decided, we haven't had health conference and said, hey, are we okay with, saying the N-word, right?
We have not. And we let that conversation stay in our community with our cousins. Y'all not privy to that yet.
Exactly. So it's like, you're not even Black. Like, how do you come into this and like try and say it? So for me, I'm like, no, don't even say it. Don't even say it in your sleep, because I'll be in your dream and I'll be like. So anyway, ex-friend. So she had said the N-word. There was another person. There was a Black man. And afterwards, I called her and I was like, you shouldn't have said it and all of that kind of stuff. And, later on, we had a longer conversation about it. And then she came from nowhere and said, oh, well, the other guy, so her other Black friend, she had a conversation with him. He wasn't offended. He said, why do rappers get to say the N-word? And I was like, I didn't even entertain. I said, first of all, me and your friend are not the same.
Okay.
So don't even come at me with that, right? So do not do this. If someone tells you you've been racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever, don't go and ask someone from another group. What you can do, you can ask Google. You can ask Google. That's what you can do.
Right
because if this friend had gone and asked Google, she would see that there's different perspectives on that. Some people are kind of like, nope, that's not okay. There's other people that are like, oh, we sort of, taking the word and turn it into something else. She would have seen that there's different perspectives on this. And then there would have been the article saying, actually, just don't say it because of all of these different things, right? So ask Google. The other thing is journaling, right? So this is something I do. It's part of my practice. So I journal when I'm really, really upset,
Yeah.
right? Maybe someone has said something to me, it makes me feel uncomfortable, I'm sad about it. I sit down and I journal. I'm just free form. Like, why do I feel this way? All of that. What kind of solution do I want? And what you find is by the end of the journaling, I've unpacked why I actually feel upset, and I've come up with a solution on how I want to move forward.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
The
So journaling is
accountability is that word.
yeah,
Yeah.
journaling is another good one. But first, do the research because, mind you, in terms of the journaling, I've gotten to this point because I've really worked on that self-awareness and all of that kind of stuff, right? But if you're very much new to it, start with the research, then do some journaling, and then see what comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things I would say. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We also have that, we have a framework as well, right? When we cause harm is the name of the framework. It's on our blog, so feel free to go check it out, y'all, on the blog. But yeah, that is something that we also suggest, right? Going to someone who shares similar privileges as you, right? Who's done the work to get that guidance besides just Google, right? And then, yeah, journaling is something that we discuss, ways to kind of navigate how these things are touching point for you and like where that work is for you and like where you can learn from it. Oh, absolutely. As a start, because I'll tell you, it's exhausting. And to the point of the N word, let me tell you, I had to honestly stop myself from going on a rant on this here blessed Instagram because because in the year of our Lord 2022, I have come to the realization there are still white folks, I'm going to say specifically white folks, who are wrestling with whether or not to say the N word. And I didn't think that was a thing, but like I was on a Facebook group for, hear me, white anti-racist educators who.
Oh no!
I need some tea, child.
No!
I need some tea. I had to stop myself. I don't care. I had to stop myself from. And my just black women doing all the work to explain why, as a white educator, you shouldn't read that, right, in your classroom. Why you're even reading text, right, from white authors who use that word in their books or their articles or whatever the case may be, even in a historical context. Why are we still doing this? And when I thought about that work was being done, right, in such a space where as Black anti-racist practitioners, we'd be in that space and having to see, oh, this is a real issue. And then I get calls from multiple schools where white students have used it as a racial slur against Black students. Multiple calls here, right, from across the country about this very issue. And it's like, this is work I didn't think I had to still do in 2022, but yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. For those of you who are on our platform, it's a no-go. And I'm gonna say it's a no-go from me and several other people, right? It's one that we could leave alone. If our community chooses to reclaim it, that's what we get to do. That's all right, right? It's within our experience, and communities get to reclaim what they choose to reclaim. You don't get to tell us when we can or when we can't. But I'll say lose your obsession with it. You need not use that word. In case you're wondering where I stand on this platform, I'm still heated, so I'm trying not to imagine the fact that my nieces and my godchildren would have to go to schools where they get to be called that in their places where they're supposed to be safe with their peers, and then use it so aggressively as an actual slur is just a joke. That's not a joke to our community. So look, now you done got me on this tangent. I thought I was over it, but I guess I'm not.
Well, I think the whole thing as well is people are asking the wrong question. The question shouldn't be, why can't white people say the N-word? It should be, why do white people want to say the N-word? So you need to be asking yourself that. So if you, as a white person, you're watching this and you're thinking, why can't I say the N-word? Ask yourself, why do I want to say the N-word? That is the real question, right? Yeah, going back to that whole point of not putting the burden on, it's like, no. Don't worry about what Black people are doing, what some Black people are doing, whether or not the same. Don't worry about that. You worry about yourself and ask yourself why you want to say the N-word. That's the question you should be asking.
Right. Especially if you call yourself an ally, right? Yeah. Like, oof. Okay.
Yeah.
why do you even want to say it in the first place? You know, I'm gonna leave that right there because you just lit a fire under me.
And
Uh,
in terms of actually reading the word, like that's just bizarre. Because like even when I was working on this project, some of the writers, I mean, we're talking about people from like the 1800s, they would use words like colored people,
mm-hmm,
you know, and we had to
and
change
people
that to
still
people of
use that
color.
today.
Yeah, and we had to change that to like people of color. So like when the actors were reading it, we just had them say people of color, simple.
Mm.
So it's like why you don't have to say the word.
Mm-hmm.
You could.
And that's an interesting point, right? That we get to language has expanded over time for a lot of things, and so we have the opportunity, right, to honor the way in which language has changed, to respect certain groups. I appreciate you even for pointing that out, right, in the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And so we are coming up on, some time here. So I want to make sure that we don't go over. I try not to go over an hour on these because I talk a lot, right? And so I have to remind myself. So we got about 20 minutes. But I do want to talk about freedom dreaming with you. You mentioned Bettina Love, and huge fan of Bettina Love. By the way, let me just mention some of the things that I'm reading. I think Bettina Love is actually featured in this as well. This is Lessons in Liberation and Abolitionist Toolkit for Educators. It's something I recently picked up from the Education for Liberation Network and Critical Resistance Editorial Collective. Y'all is huge, but I'm starting it this week. Super excited to get into it. And so in that, Bettina Love talks about freedom dreaming, like its place in our schools, for students, for educators. So I'm going to ask you, as you imagine a world that fully loved you and your truth, who you are authentically, how you show up in the world, what does that world look like?
Wow, that's a big question, you know.
It is.
A world that loved me as I am. Well, first of all, when I turned on the TV, I'd see women who look like me, like on the news. Which is why, by the way, I don't really watch like normal TV. This is why I love things like Netflix or Prime Video because I get to choose what I want to watch. So if I could say, you know what, I want to go watch a black movie, I'm Nigerian, I can be like, you know what, I'm gonna go watch a Nollywood movie because I want to see people that look like me, who talk like me.
I actually really appreciate Nollywood. Okay,
Yeah.
I got introduced in a braiding shop. Okay, and I have been in love ever since. And when Netflix started putting them joints out there, I was like, oh yeah. All right, I digress. Continue.
Yeah, a world where when I'm assertive, I'm not called aggressive. That would be nice. A world where I don't have to be excellent to get certain things, you know. We can go into this whole conversation about like the whole Black excellence thing. I have a love-hate relationship with it because I'm like, equality is when Black people can be basic and still end up on Netflix. And this is why I love Nollywood, right? Because like this, some of the movies are absolutely trash, but somehow they made it. They made it and put it out, and people are watching it. And I'm like, yes, that is equality. Black people being basic and still being able to make a movie, right?
Right.
But even when you look at history, the other thing is like, again, going back to growing up in Nigeria, tribalism wouldn't be a thing. So I grew up and, you know, there was this whole thing about the different tribes and, you know, if that person's from that tribe, you know, you need to watch them suspiciously. And all of this is like the legacy of things like slavery, right? It caused a lot of distrust. So that wouldn't even be a thing. It would just be, that's all fine. You know, even things like slavery would have never happened. The patriarchy would definitely not exist. All of the other isms. We live in this like, if for example we thought about people with disabilities, because I actually think people who have disabilities are probably the most marginalized group. Because imagine if you're Black and then you have a disability, right? But if we built a world where it was accessible to people with disabilities, I actually think the world would actually be a better place. Like in terms of technology, we'd probably be like 200 years ahead. Or something like that.
Which also speaks to the ways in which education should consider the work that they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your starting point? I always ask that question when organizations or schools bring us in and they want to do curriculum and they want to do this and that. And I'm like, well, who's your starting point? Whose stories are you starting from?
Yeah.
Right? And as you think about, I love that world for us. That's a world I want to see come to fruition. It's a world that we out here continue to fight for real, right? Continue to push for, yeah.
And it can be done, right? Because we've seen how people can rally around and get things done if they really want to. It can be done. The problem is there are not enough people prioritizing it. For a lot of people, it's more of an afterthought. But imagine if it was always at the forefront, right? And again, if we go back to the whole thing about, being an ally is just about being a decent human being, right? Imagine if we thought beyond ourselves. And I would love for us to move away from only caring about things that only affect us. Again, going back to that example of, straight black men, very much understanding racism, but when it comes to homophobia or sexism or any of the other isms, it's like, left the building. Senses left the building. Why do we only need to care about things when it affects us?
And why isn't our starting point always, if something is happening to a sibling that I've never met, why do I still not care about that? Right?
Yeah.
I say sibling because it shifts the way in which we think about community, right? And so when we think about families we've never met, why isn't it that we hear that they're affected and we don't want to do something?
Yeah, or worse, we call harm, right? Because, we've seen everything that's happened with Ukraine and like Africans and, other Asians, black and brown people trying to flee and, being stopped and having to face racism. And, people are shocked and saying, oh, this is like a war situation. Why are people being racist? And I'm like, do you think racism sleeps? It's not like it goes to sleep. It's always there. It's just that, when these things happen on a large scale, then you're kind of like, ooh, shocked. But these things happen to us every day, on a much smaller scale. And it doesn't always blow up and end up being like a big situation that the media reports on, but it's always there.
And let's even talk about how the media covers it, because you watch this unfolding in the Ukraine and you hear all of this, right? And the outrage that we're seeing here in the US. I'm not sure what y'all are experiencing there, but there's this outrage for what Russia is doing, and rightfully so. I don't think we shouldn't be outraged by it, because occupation of any kind is wrong. But yet that coverage is not happening for Israel and Palestine. That coverage is not happening for Yemen. That coverage is not for Syria, right? Like when we think about the ways in which war is impacting so many places right now and occupation, the coverage that I'm seeing the most and for righteous indignation is for a predominantly white country.
And even honestly, some of the things the journalists are saying, like there was one person who was interviewed and they said, oh, these are blonde haired and blue eyed people. And I just stood there and I was watching. I know, like, yeah, racism is not surprising, but I was like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, that was very,
like,
very
these are civilized countries, like the disgust. Yeah.
And this is it, right? And even initially, when people were bringing attention to it, there were some white people who were very quick to say, oh, no, it's because they want to let the women and children on. But then people were like, but hold on, what about the black and brown women and children? They're not being allowed on. People were like, oh, it's not racism. Why are you bringing this up? We should just focus on the war. And it's like, but this is actually part of the war. So let's tell the whole story, right? And, going back to this conversation about who's an ally, I remember there was a post that I saw on LinkedIn. It was an African student talking about, he was a medical student. He was looking for somewhere else to go and study because he had been studying in Ukraine. So he was asking, people for help. And there was a white woman, she went and she commented on his post and she said, oh, I've made a list of all the different institutions where you can get things like grants and scholarships. And I've even put down like how you can even apply for it. And I was like, that made my day. That's what it means. Instead of being, trying to post and say, oh, there's no racism happening, or, maybe attack the guy and say, oh, why don't you go back to your country? She came up with a solution and she was like, here's how I can help. And she sat down, used her expertise and what she knew, put it into a doc, and only, who knows how many people that's going to help, right?
Right. How are you leveraging your access, your expertise, um, your proximity to organizations that even might be able to help, calling them in? Like, I think about the folks working for these large corporations. How can you even call your organization in to do this work? Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, we are coming up on time, and I want to make sure that the folks know where to reach you. Okay. How can we support the work that you are doing with True White Allies, and how can we support your work as a director? Come on, director. Film. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, so it's truewhiteallies.com. So check out the film, sign up to the mailing list. But call to action for all the videos, I was like, share it with two white people.
Mm.
So don't share it with two white people. That's who I want to watch the films, and preferably people who are not already co-conspirators or allies already. Share it with someone who maybe you think needs it. Although maybe don't send them this video because now they'll know that you think there's someone that needs it.
It's okay. You can let them know that they need it. Okay. That's all right. About being called in.
Yeah, so watch the film, share it far and wide. If you happen to know someone who works for Netflix, then send them my way.
You never know. So put that out
Never
there.
know.
You never know. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
And I just blah blah blah. Just popped up. Thank you for buying a badge. Is it Show Me Shanks? I want to make sure I said that right. Thank you so much for buying a badge. For the rest of y'all who are here, you've heard this really wonderful conversation. Be sure to support our work here at the Institute. So you can definitely support by purchasing a badge. So on IG, could you just ask what it is? IG now allows folks to purchase badges for those who are in conversation on here, especially for like Black creators who don't normally get paid for content. So this is a way that people can support our org by donating just a couple of bucks for this conversation. So anyone, thank you. Thank you so much for buying a badge and supporting the work. Yeah, so anyone else on here wants to support, you can definitely support and follow True White Allies. You can support our work here by donating as well, because we are trying to make sure y'all get this information and know what's really out there. So
you got another badge.
yeah. Oh, look at that. Thank you. We appreciate it. We love. And so, yeah, I want to thank you for coming on today and giving us all of this wonderful information, really just introducing us to your work. I think it's phenomenal, and I'm really just excited about the information that you're putting out into the world. So do you have anything else for us that we should keep in mind, that we should think about before we sign off?
The time to be anti-racist is now, not tomorrow, not 5 years from now. Time to be anti-racist is now. So yeah, thank you so much for having me and giving me the chance to explain what I think an ally is as well. And thank you for all your work with the Institute as well. Super, super important. I love seeing your posts like on Instagram. So informative. I'm always like sharing. I'm like, yeah, this is what I meant. Yeah, somebody else wrote it.
You're like, yeah, you go ahead. Well, we thank you sincerely. Also for being patient, y'all. On the back end, the Institute is doing a lot. We are trying to grow and expand. And I am exhausted, y'all. So we are trying hard here to build something. And in that, it's always me being stressed on the back end. But I thank you for being patient with us too. And so I'm going to sign off like I usually sign off. So those of you on our platform who have seen us live, you've seen us do these lives before, you know how I'm about to sign off. And it's early enough in the day, the sun is shining on me, so my skin is glowing. So I'm going to say this is going to feel real good. If you haven't heard it today, I want you to hear from me right now. I love you. I love you for who you are, for how you show up in the world. In the world right now, we need more folks to say the words, I love you. We need more folks to feel it. And so because I love you so much, I'm fighting to create the world that honors you. And I need you to help me. I want you to pass on this love that I'm giving to you. And I want you to contact someone else. Tell them how much you love them. Text them. Tell them what they mean to you, because I can honestly tell you, if we said it more, if we actually meant it, and we fought for love every day, we'd see a different world. So help me create that world today. Tell somebody else you love them. And that's where we are. We're signing off. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ashley.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for being here. Y'all take care. Have a great day. I'm not saying good night because we normally do this at night, but have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day, y'all. Take care.